Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Honey, It's Yours.
Boom. Bow.
I'm Danae.
I'm Rianne.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm just Ashley. And today we have another special episode, even though every episode is special, but we have another episode and we're diving into the nitty gritty of it all. So, what are we talking about today? What's the topic on hand?
Nah, she has the history lessons.
That's not how the episode starts, bro. What's
pinning,
the topic?
No, I'm pinning Danae on the history lesson.
I would give the history lesson, but that was not the topic.
So the introduction, background, paragraph, body.
You see?
Conclusion.
Organization.
So introduction. The thesis is...
Are you a pick-me?
And are you colorist?
Facts.
Are you both?
Let's talk about it.
No, it's last time you looked in the mirror.
Oh.
What did you see?
Oh, okay, that question.
Did you wash that crust out your eye?
Nah, we're on these people.
Nah.
My gosh.
We're talking about implicit bias. Is that the phrase for it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And manipulating people in situations based on your own biases. I think that covers both of them.
That's a good way to put it.
Let's start with the background of colorism, and then we'll jump into pick-me-ism.
Paragraph 1.
So I'm a firm believer in you need to go do your own research. So you're going to get my version of the history, and then I suggest you go and get your version of the history, which should be the actual history. Not that mine isn't, but I'm just not going to do all the stuff. So once upon a time, there were these people who sold black people to, the Americas and the Caribbean and all the other beautiful places. And some of the black people helped themselves too, that part. But
Woman king.
yeah. Then we got here, and wherever else, and they made us slaves. And they put all the real black people in the back. The ones furthest out in the field, like when you could shoot them, you wouldn't even hear it. That's how far out they were. And then you had the real light-skinned people.
I feel like this history lesson is very...
Yeah. And then you had the light-skinned people who were in the house, taking care of the family, probably getting raped low-key. And then you have the people...
High-key.
Then you have the people...
She like low-key, what?
I'm just, and then you had the people on the porch who were like, they knew what was going on in the house, but then they were still cool enough to know what was happening out in the field too. At least in the front part of the field. You know what I'm saying? Then, slavery was abolished, so then you had indentured servitude, then you had the prison system. But I mean, in between all of that, right, you also had, the Jim Crow era and all that good stuff, and then there was this cool thing, that came about that was like paper bag, right? We can't just say we're racist, even though we've been racist this whole time, and our systems and our laws and everything about us screams racism. So instead of that, we're just gonna look at them and be like, are you darker than a paper bag or are you lighter than a paper bag? But nowadays they even make different shades of paper bags, so that's a whole different thing. But yeah, that is my version of colorism. So and that's the history of colorism and the concept of viewing one race or one set of people, still further separating one race and one set of people into smaller portions based on not even, well, I guess the color, but the pigment of the skin and the amount of melanin that runs through.
I would also like to add that it's not only an America's problem, because I know in places like India or
Egypt.
Yeah, I say Northern Africa and the Middle. I hate using the Middle East as a region. I don't know why. It doesn't feel right in my mouth.
It's the West, but
that's what I'm like, yo. But in that region, right, where it's like they're considered not black, but they still deal with colorism there too. So I want to include them into this conversation also. So yeah, what's the problem with colorism, honestly? I think in today's age, it's just so divisive. Divide and conquer was the goal of this people, and they're winning. The agenda is being pushed that the lighter you are, the more prettier you are, the more docile you are, the more admirable, the more, the people that can sit at the front of the restaurant. Like, there's a lot of restaurants in New York where you can sit on the bottom floor, or you get seated upstairs based on how you look like. And
Maggiano's.
There's pergola.
I've actually never thought about that.
Really?
I've never thought about that.
It happens.
That's a crazy thing for me to never think about, considering the industry I'm in. But I never thought about that.
Yeah, and it even goes into like who's working where, like
Oh,
front
well,
office,
yeah, that's
back
obvious.
office, but like where you get seated in the restaurant, it's bro. There's a lot of stories about these progressive, or you would think these ethnicities would be more inclusive, but they still have a division within race.
Especially when those establishments are like open to attract more people, attract black crowds specifically, and then you end up causing more division within the community in your own establishment. Like, how do you manage to do that? Like, that takes real hateful skill for you to do that within your own establishment, especially when that is your target people.
But I think it's also like, it's still like innate. No, I don't like using the word innate, and I don't know why it's in my vocabulary this often these days, but it's subconscious in a sense too. Like, obviously people are just mean and like lives, but all of that comes from somewhere, and a lot of it is subconscious bias. That's what we as a people have been programmed to associate with beauty. And even now, although I feel like as society we think we're getting more about it, I don't know if we actually are. I don't think we are, but I feel like society feels like they are, because we have those token icon dark midnight dark skin like black people. I'm not saying in a bad way, I'm just saying like we have those people now, so we feel like we're getting better at it as a society, but really and truly I don't necessarily feel like we are. And I feel like in those spaces it's like, oh no, this is kind of like the norm.
And even within those tokens are fetishized. Like, I would say that there's some beautiful South Sudanese models who have beautiful, like, dark pigmented skin, and I feel like sometimes the attention they get as being a model, like if they weren't models, they wouldn't get that attention, right? And it's like their beauty is only broadcasted because of the certain features that they have that are still European.
So how do you differ between like fetishizing somebody's skin color compared to genuinely calling them beautiful?
And appreciation. I think it's kind of like that whole thing of like, what is appreciation, what is appropriation, what is fetishization? Like, there's thin lines of it. I think it all comes down to intent, even though you can't really feel somebody's intention through media. So through TV, music, or social media, whatever, like you really can't really feel intention. But I feel like your first gut feeling is right. You don't think so?
I agree with your gut feeling is right part, and that there are thin lines, but
there are thin lines, and then some things are blatant.
No, I agree with all of that, but I feel like in my head and in my experiences, I have yet to find the line between appreciation and fetishization.
Because
like the whole thing is cringe to me. Like, I feel like, I mean, I'm gonna let you talk about it. Like, the whole, I feel like when you go out of your way to like really beautiful black tits, it's just, the whole thing to me just seems
too much. But is it too much because you're not accustomed to it? You know how because you're not in the area, you're like, oh, this is weird. But it might not be weird. This is just the genuine. But I feel like you are so beautiful.
I get that, but I don't know, because I'm talking like even like not even like another race in my race. I'm talking about even when like other people who are like, let's say brown skin, kind of like go really hard to acknowledge that part of me. Like, you ain't
uncomfortable.
It's like I see what you're saying, because if it was a white person, you're not gonna say, oh, this creamy, milky, like you're not always to describe the complexion, like you know what I'm saying, like this
beautiful black woman,
like,
yes, love that.
Nobody does that.
And like, I feel like and I feel like once you and I develop an actual relationship, and it's like, what do you like about me? And all these other things, that's when you can start. I love your dark pink, like
melanin skin.
The first, like, when if a guy comes to me off rip, and every compliment is, oh, you're like, yeah, this is giving like fetish attraction, trying to get me somewhere, not necessarily just being appreciative of who I am as a person.
I think it's both. I can see both sides, where it's like, I don't know how to explain it, where like it could be just that you're just not used to getting that much attention,
yeah.
But it could cross lines like, okay, the only reason why you're up here is because deep inside of you, this is not of God.
Right. I get
like,
it.
you know what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah. I get it in that aspect. But because like the whole thing of like not being used to the attention, it could be attention about your eyes. It
and
could
you're
be
like,
attention about your
toes. Like,
you know,
there's
like other things that you got fetishes about. So once it comes to strictly skin, I think that's when it's just like, because again, I ain't never heard somebody fetish over white skin. Like maybe I think in theory, like deeply, well, you know, online,
yes,
not to that same.
And Eastern Asian cultures, right?
Oh, you know what you're right.
The fair skinned you are. This
like
goes
Eastern
into color.
Asian. This is like even in Egypt. Like growing up, my grandma was like my dad is like a darker skin tone. My mom is more fair skin. My uncle darker skin tone. Mm-hmm. My grandpa darker skin tone. My grandma, the way she'll talk about like all of them is like, oh, they're like in our language it's called asmar. Wahed asmarani. Like he's a darker one. Mm-hmm. And then she'll look at my my other cousin who has like more straighter hair. Her dad has like blondish hair, colored eyes, like blue eyes, and she looks like she's European. My grandma, that's the favorite. My grandma loves her. Mm-hmm. So my grandma, since we were young, was like, oh, look at your baby cousin. Look at how beautiful she is. She's the favorite. She gets all the compliments. She gets all of that. And even like the people in my family who are like a darker skin tone look at her and they're like, look at how beautiful she is. Except my dad. My dad is like, no. So
not my kid.
Yeah, exactly. Like so, like the cousins with like the curlier hair and the darker skin. Like I have cousins who are darker than me. They're like neglected by like my grandma, and she's like, yeah, y'all are okay. Like you're all right.
I think that's the whole crux of colorism. I was saying like the whole milkiness of it all. Like if you ever watched what's the name of the show? Singles Inferno. When they're introducing the character, so it's a Korean show, and they're introducing themselves, and the first thing they're introducing themselves, and they talk about their skin and how nice and light it is. I'm just like,
she's so beautiful, she's so dainty, she has
she's
such
so
pale, fair skin. Like the paleness for them is like the most.
It's like right here, it's like
That's been ingrained for generations though, because even how they used to do makeup back then, even now, they used to put pounds and pounds and pounds of like white makeup on themselves, and it was just like a standard of beauty for them, and that's just carried on. I don't know if that has European influence or not, because they've been like their culture has always been like that for like a minute now. But something like Egypt and North Africa, the worst forms of colorism come in between that, because we have people of all different colors, and you have like the Nubians in Egypt, for example, are the black people of Egypt, and they are denied by like most Egyptians, and a bunch of Algerians and Moroccans are also black, and it's like, oh, those aren't our people, and it's like, what is through your head?
It was called recently about the World Cup when Morocco was called the African country, and a lot of people from Morocco were like, wait a minute, we're not African.
Exactly, but that's the issue. That's the fight within the African continent itself, is that who's African and who's not.
It's because of the negative connotation and association that the world has with being considered black or just having darker skin. Like no one, you could see even that whole argument of like black Dominicans. You cannot call a Dominican black because they're not black, they're Dominican. Like it's just the whole like there's such a negative like a negative weight to that. Like, and it doesn't neighbors. Just step over the line and all of a sudden you something else. Like,
I'll never forget dating. Sorry.
It goes deep, because I feel like because of the palm-handed people and their influence on the world and how they divided the world like a pizza and said, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get that. Their hands are so dirty, like it's ridiculous. And the way, I don't know how they. It's not even about them mending it, because I feel like now it's become a us problem in a way. We have internalized it so much that we hate ourselves so much. Right. Like to the point where within your own family, there is genuine hate. Like Jen can't even stand the look of you because of the way that you were born and you have no control over that, right? And it's like, for example, the whole Haitian and Dominican drama of it all is just like, there's so much miseducation about their relationship that has been passed down through generations, where you see like the older generation is way more colorist, and you can just call it flat out racist than in comparison to the younger generations, and some of them are just so ignorant that it gets passed down through generations.
Nobody tries to filter through that ignorance either. That's the thing. Everybody has been so comfortable just passing it down because it's so easy. It's so much easier to call somebody else ugly or call somebody else by the standards that you think you know, when it's like, again, the reality of things. That's what I mean about the reality. There's that reality where everybody is beautiful in their own way. It's not about the color of your skin. And that's what I mean when it's like people think that their own reality of somebody else not being beautiful based on the color of their skin is the truth. It's not.
Right. But I think it's also the people who are most likely to carry it over into the generations when it hasn't affected you personally, right? So I feel like most times, other than self-hatred, where you are of a darker complexion and now you're teaching your child that they themselves are also ugly because they're going to be born with darker complexion, but people who benefit from this system of thinking oftentimes send it down to the younger generation so that they can, also benefit from the same thing.
Yep. I'll even say, like, Egyptians who move here, that's why they thoroughly enjoy being white. Because the association with being a different color skin or a darker color skin. Meanwhile, majority of the Egyptians that I'm around in church are darker than me, or even like lights, like not light skin, but not brown skin, like in the middle. Still consider themselves white, and I'm like, somebody outside looking at you is not calling you white. So what do you get out of thinking that you are part of that other community?
It's a superiority sensation. They feel like they are now above and equivalent to other white people because they can pass for that in their mind.
But then, to me, it's
I
like,
feel like it's a double-edged sword too, because sometimes some light-skinned people are black enough when we want to acknowledge their achievements. For example, Kamala and or going into even mixed race people, they're black enough, or Drake, for example, he even had a verse about that. They're black enough to be tokenized as, oh, these are the successful black people, but then
they're not white enough to be white.
They're not white enough to, right? Like, I don't know.
Or they're not black enough for other things.
Yeah, they're not black enough to this. Yeah, you can't speak on this topic because you're not black.
But who decides that?
That's the problem.
But that's the whole thing. It's like, so like,
sorry,
I don't know, because it's just a lot. Like this topic is so like loaded and ridiculous, because I understand you're not that you're not qualified to talk on this, but you're maybe not the best person. If we had to pick a pool of people, you're not the best person. I mean, in this room, yes, but I wasn't saying it. So I was just looking at you guys because I'm
Kamala,
sitting here.
Drake,
it's just like certain. Yeah, it's just like certain things. Like, I don't want you to. Like, I don't want you to be the person to talk on this, because in my view, and that's what it's all like subjective, but in my view, I don't think it has impacted you in the same way. Like, if I didn't meet you at Baruch, I wouldn't have known or assumed you were black either. Like, it was because I knew you through ASA. I knew, like, no, I'm from here. Right. And I heard the story, and it's like, okay, cool. But still, in spaces, if you and I walk in a space,
it's different.
The experience is never like light years. It's gonna be different.
So before we even go further, Sarah, can you clarify for those who are watching, who
I feel
may
like
not
she
know
had this conversation so many
maybe
times.
in the past, maybe for those who are just joining us now, in case you don't know about Sarah,
what do you identify as?
Please.
Yes. So I was born and raised in Kenya till I was about 10 years old, and I moved here, but I'm by blood Egyptian. So all of my ties are to the African continent, but the problem that I have is that I don't identify as white and I don't identify as black. I am just other in the mix, because I don't think it's so, like, I don't think it's one or the other.
It goes to that whole race, ethnicity, and nationality thing.
Exactly. But even in America, I don't think Egyptians should be classified as white because we face our own things. It's not as bad as black people ever, but like the darker skinned ones of us do face like the same issues, but like the ones in like my skin tone and stuff, like when I walk into school and it's I was called Africa for 8 years. It was like the curly hair was an issue, and then my dad walking into a basketball game being called a terrorist. Like, it's so many different things that still don't make me white, but then when I walk into black spaces, it's like, oh, what are you? And like some people
explain how you belong here.
Right, it's like some people you're black, some people you're not black, some people you're not white but you're not black. Like, so to me, I don't really answer the question as anything specific. I just say I'm African. Take that with whatever you want. I know what I am. You can decide in your head what you want,
honestly. But for me, when we talk about, so then who is black, I think the transatlantic slave trade has made Africans black. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
Because a lot of Africans don't consider themselves black because they hold on to the fact that black is an American thing, right? So if you aren't black American, then you aren't black. And that's a lot of the narrative with a lot of Dominicans also. They're not black because they're not black American, but they're just Dominican.
They identify with their culture,
with their ethnicity and their nationality rather than their race, because the race thing is not
has a negative connotation.
That, and I don't think
it doesn't define them in the same way. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was talking to my friend who's actually African American, as in like South, like transatlantic. He doesn't know where he comes from because of slavery, and I say that to say, like, I don't identify as African American. I'm Dominican American. Like, I know for the most part, I can trace back a couple generations, and it was one island. You know what I'm saying? So like,
right.
One thing we were talking about the other day is the difference between, in his eyes, between being African American and being immigrant American minority in any sense is our whole culture, history, identity was not defined around this one period of time. So although all of our countries in some way or another had some form of slavery or apartheid, like something happened, but it doesn't completely define everything going forward even now. And like, I mean, I don't know how much that's true of like the continent of Africa, because that's like a whole different thing going on over there. They were walling, but like that they were. But I'm just saying, like, that concept. So I get I get that now, like now that the pieces come together, because in America, black is black is a hard, like, black is bad, like, and not that it's bad, but it's bad, like, you down bad, right? You're fighting for your life,
right? So that's why I don't feel comfortable identifying as black, because like you said, me and you can walk into a room and there's two different experiences, entirely different. So it's like, where does that line fall? Because like, it's like I am fully African, but it's like, but you're not black. But I can't identify. I think it's not fair to identify as black.
And this goes into the whole diaspora wars of it all, where it's like people don't take the time to actually listen to how you self-identify and how you self-introduce how you self-introduce to a group of people when you're coming to a room and presenting your experiences and whatnot. And that's why we have wars about continental African Americans and African Americans beefing with each other, say, but my ancestors were never slaves. Like, it's just all of this needs, we just need to take a breath and just listen to each other and how we identify it. Like, if I introduce myself as this, then is that.
Nah, I get that, but I don't.
In some cases, and this goes to the whole other topic about me-ism, you don't have to belittle somebody else's identification to big up your own self. Like, you can't, like, for example, I'm not black, I'm Dominican. You don't have to say I'm not black.
You just say,
Dominican. You don't have to negate something else and then make yours positive, because that gives a negative connotation onto the other one.
Or you can say, just have a little bit more good, like, I don't identify as black, and explain why you don't identify as black, because we just talked about the whole transatlantic slave trade making Africans black and all that. just say I don't identify as black because I feel like that is a category reserved for people who live in the Americas, and I'm Dominican. I don't know.
I think there's the other side to that. Yes, I think there's another side to that too, though, because I get the like I don't want to identify as this for those reasons, but then there are also the other people who are trying so hard to identify as something too, and it's like you're trying so hard to fit into something that really and truly you don't fit in. Like you don't fit into it, and it's like it breaks my heart on both sides, right? Because I think about like what you said, and I'm like, if like you shouldn't feel like a defining part of you deciding not to identify as black should not be because you don't think it's fair to the people around you, right? But then on the other hand too, there are people who are, no, I'm black. Yeah, I've been through this and I've been through that, and it's like, bro, we're not trying to figure out who had the most trauma. Like, remember that girl in Baruch from the
bleep. Keep going.
Let's talk about it after because I want to hear
new one because it's like
I don't remember.
We were already skeptical. Like she had to explain herself.
She didn't present as black.
Yeah, so she had to explain herself, which granted is not nice.
And it's not the burden. But it was sometimes explaining yourself is not.
Yeah, but it was also like she was going so hard. It was so we had to make the math, and the math. We just got to the point where it's like, all right.
So where are you from?
We'll let you math. And then Shooty was going off and just like, bro, respectfully, this is not the place for you. Like, you have to go.
Like, you just take up too much space.
Yeah, and I feel like that was probably, in a sense, maybe some type of pick-me-ism. I still need clarification on what pick-me-ism truly is, but like I felt for her, it was very much like I want to be down so bad in this room.
That's
in this
exactly
space.
what it is.
So I'm gonna do whatever.
Great
grandfather
I'm black.
Legitimately, yes. It was giving one drop rule bad, and I've never seen somebody who is.
And you can't do that with the person who's arguing with her.
I
can't do that.
I've never seen somebody who does not present as black try so hard to be down to be black based off of the one drop rule. Usually they run it in the other direction from the
I'm
rule.
0.2% Nigerian.
Yo, what? It was so bad. And if you're watching this, we talking about you.
Yeah,
because it's obvious it was you.
But I feel like, and those people, it goes into pick-me-ism, and I feel like they try to capitalize off of certain categories when it benefits them. You want to be black when it's good to be black.
When it's beneficial for you.
But when it's not time to be black, when you get pulled over, and I hate that this is always when you get pulled over or when you go to a job interview and your name matches your face, you don't have that, like, you don't relate. I'm sorry, you should have to. I feel like certain people just need to reserve spaces for the people who are the most oppressed in that space. Like, if we're talking about colorism, we should let the darker skinned people talk first. If we're talking about racism, let's let the oppressed group of people talk first. And I feel like sometimes the opposite has more to say about the other. Meaning, if we're talking about the trauma that men inflict, the most qualified people will be women. To talk about men. If we're talking about the trauma that racism inflicts, black people should be talking about should have more
or
of
the
space.
Equivalent in your part of the world.
Yeah, to talk about that. And I feel like that's how it is, because we're the oppressed. I'm stealing this from somewhere. The oppressed are more qualified to talk about how they've been oppressed by the oppressor. There you go.
My stomach just growled. She looked at me crazy.
But going into pick-me-ism, I feel like
please define what pick-me-ism is.
I'm gonna try and bridge it, right? So we talk about colorism because there's this whole pretty privilege when you're nice, fair skinned. Yeah, when you're the standard of beauty. And I was just about to describe it.
Yeah, I feel like you was about to hurt yourself. It's fine.
Yeah, when you're the standard of beauty, right? And I'll just talk about in the United States of America because it's very different in different places. You are associated with being pretty and have a certain type of privilege when you walk into certain places. For example, a bar. When you try to get the bartender's attention, you might be picked over the girl that's not in conformance with the beauty standard. And sometimes when you're in a room, it's usually with the opposite sex, and I'm talking about women, they big up themselves so much and belittle the person next to them so they can get picked by the man. So it could be like coming into the room like, oh, I don't wear that much makeup, you know, I like being natural, you know, or it's like, I don't have a lot of girlfriends, I'm always with the guys, and it's like, yeah, I'm with the guys, and the guys looking at you like,
nah, it's the reaction of the guys when they say that.
Because like for me, if you find it so hard to be picked, I hope the person that you trying to get picked by doesn't pick you, honestly.
Why are you wishing bad on their pick-me-ism?
Because you're trying so hard that everybody is uncomfortable. So I hope you don't get picked.
Okay, got it. That was gonna be my question, because I think do you understand what pick-me-ism before I continue?
If you have a more concise definition,
damn.
Okay, I guess
you did a great
it
job.
was a good definition for those who know what pick-me-ism is.
It was a good analogy.
For those who don't know what pick-me-ism is, it's being a pick-me is one who is trying to gain affirmation, acknowledgement, attention from another party, be it a man, be it another group of people.
A win.
And in order to do so, they put others down and to lift themselves up. So by saying I don't wear that much makeup, I'm insinuating that you wear too much makeup and they like me more because I wear less. And so it's shade. It's shade.
That could never be me.
It's
yes.
Yeah, it could never be me.
So the question I have is, how much pick-me-ism is too much? Because I think, speaking for myself and my own experience, because I was a pick-me in the past, how much is too much?
No, before we go to how much is too much, can you please explain your evolution of why were you a pick-me?
Yeah, like what made you a pick-me?
Yeah, what made
I don't see you putting anybody down. Honestly.
Well, I don't think it was so much putting anybody down, but I thrived in getting attention specifically from guys. Like I was always had crushes on boys. I just loved the boys, and just getting their attention and like.
How would I go
about doing so? I wanted to be down so bad. So I would like present myself. I wouldn't dress as girly. I'd want to be more of a tomboy. I'd talk about the video games I'm into so I could relate to them. So they'd like me a little bit more. I would converse with them, and I used to do this. I would be talking about other girls to them the way they'd be talking to their boys about other girls, so that they felt like I was one of the boys and they could talk to me about other girls too. But then I would know the tea, so it's like, so what did someone say? Like, so she really sat on your lap, like, she was a wildin', and it's like, yeah, she was wildin', and it's like, me doing that, tried to, like, get on their level, and almost, like, think like a man, so they felt like we were bros, but, like, in my head, I was closer to them now, because they're telling me everything, they're not telling her anything, and I didn't always want, like, a relationship out of it. I just wanted that connection with men, because I just felt like that was always something I was striving towards. Why? I don't know. I have a father. He's a great dad. I don't have daddy issues, because usually pick-me-ism is connected to daddy issues. But like, as far as I know, I don't have daddy issues.
In the thought process of it all, right? By becoming a bro, how does that now make that? Because bro, if these are heterosexual men, right? And you present yourself as another bro, and you put yourself in a friend zone automatically, right? How do they want to now date a bro?
But they have become so intimate in the connection with you that if they decide to look at you a different way, it's like, I'm already so cool with her. I already know her. Like, we have an intimate connection, and I'm talking about like not necessarily romantic, but just like
intimate.
Yeah, like
it's deeper. Yeah,
I get that. It's like when you date somebody who was your friend first. Like, you guys are so good here that if y'all choose to take it there, it's like. It's just everything, the cards gotta align. If you gotta come and looking right on the right day.
Yeah.
It's like,
see this manipulation.
Hold on.
Very much. There was a lot of thought into it.
It's a game.
I'm trying to tell you, Rob.
There's a lot of
the game is trash.
For mad long. I've been saying it for mad long. And like, the problem is that the friendships do end up forming out of those type of situations. Like, I can't say I haven't not become friends with a guy because of those types of conversations. But also, I would never go up to the guy and be like, yo, that shorty's wildin', no. And no, he'll probably come up and be like, yo, did you just see what I just saw? And I'd be like, yeah.
But the intentionalism, I think, is what makes it a pick me.
Okay. That makes
but if you're generally interested, let's say we're talking about football, and football is on the TV, and we're having a game night, and we talk about football. And
we're talking about football, right?
We're talking about football, but if it's, oh, those girls have no idea what we're talking about. Like,
That's
oh my gosh, this game is so good.
Thing.
That gives pick me.
Like,
gives,
most girls don't play basketball,
but I do.
I'm like,
so do you feel like in my limited pick? Why?
No, just because people piss me off. Like,
it's cringe.
In my limited pick me experience, I mean, and this is this episode, not experience. I don't know if I was like that. I don't think I was like that. But do you feel like that's something that kind of, I'm thinking about people that we have known throughout our journey together in like school and stuff. And
we
like,
know many pictures.
I know.
more than you think.
But
It's the hint on the.
I'm thinking about like people who like I knew and interacted with. Do we feel like a lot of the people that come into my mind, right? They all happen to be dark skinned. The people who are coming to my mind in particular. But I could have the definition wrong.
No, it's not. It's not just that.
I've seen a mix.
I know it's mixed, but I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm
but you got
just,
a couple of
I'm
them.
trying.
I already know you think that.
Yeah,
But
and
you
I
got
feel
a
like
couple.
I feel like it's a certain level of I
Don't
can give
name-
you a
no names,
list.
please.
You know I always got a list.
No names.
Are we gonna pause?
No.
No, we're gonna bleep them out. We're gonna bleep them
I'm
out.
thinking about this one.
Yeah.
Yep,
Right?
I know.
Then
Automatic. That's a very
one
good
of y'all,
example.
I never liked her.
I know exactly. You
I
can
know
write her name
exactly
down
who
too.
you
I don't know what her name is
Right,
though.
right.
Oh yeah.
Yes, but that's not who I was talking about.
Oh.
Can you put music here?
Yeah, it's gonna be. All right, we'll be back.
Just a moment, please. The Hunnies will be with you shortly.
We're back. I think some of those people that we're talking about,
It's like an extra layer of validation
this
for
goes,
your
yes.
space.
That's exactly what it is.
This goes to the topic of, I think this generation is just too sexual, right? So these people would drop so many sexual innuendos and sexual things that they have done.
I wasn't even talking about that.
Oh yeah, that's in the club room.
Yeah.
In order for them to get props from the guys,
They had to have those check marks.
they had to have those check marks.
But also, I
Yeah.
just feel like a lot of the ways in which you spoke to make yourself be heard. Because I didn't like, when I brought these specific people up, I didn't even think that at all.
Oh, I'm not all of them, but like I would
Yeah.
say the last three.
I put 3 names on the phone.
No,
there's
four.
four.
Oh, okay.
Four.
Not
But
the
like-
first one you put.
Yeah, I'm like, so like in the case of the first one I put, like it was just very much, why are you fighting so hard to make yourself be and everybody else is little and miss and
Absolutely.
I'm not like, it's just it gives a lot.
There was somebody else.
But
that I'm
you know
thinking
why?
of.
Okay, and I think this is where you're going. I could be wrong, because they have been in her instance, right? Her circle does not look like her,
That's what I'm saying.
and it's because she has felt not in the know, that she has tried so hard to be in the know that it makes her a pick me, and it makes it weird for everybody that looks like her to be her friend. I feel like because it's just too try hard, because you have not.
She hasn't had to not. She's always had to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like
So it's not her
she resonated with me very strongly in that aspect, because I'm like, I get what it is to be like a dark skinned girl and to be even though I'm not like that dark, especially in this day and age where you have dark skinned people, but to still be the darkest person in a space and kind of just, even if it's not intentional, like
Fight to be seen.
yeah, or like to continuously like have to tell yourself no, you're pretty, you belong here. Like that's something that like you deal with all the time. Like even like, not that I'm in a space with you guys where I don't feel like that, but like we take pictures and it's like,
You're beautiful.
thank you. But I'm like, we take pictures and like I love our pictures because it's very much the rainbow, but it's also just like,
The lighting does have to
okay,
hit.
yeah. And I'm like, I told y'all I'm standing on the left. So I'm like, y'all can figure that shit. I'm standing on this side because this is the side where I think I look good. So I get how like that can kind of play into how you now start to maneuver through the world. And even if it wasn't like, it's not like a direct correlation because I don't have data or analytics, but like that feeling of having to validate yourself in spaces because of all of these other factors come into the way in which you
Try to be picked.
and operate with
Absolutely.
people.
But then it goes to the question of the too much pick me, right? Where I think when you're overcompensating for a feeling that you have dealt with all the time, I feel like, and you give off the vibe of try hard versus
Therapy.
Everybody.
Sorry.
Versus, I feel like every human being on this earth wants to be picked.
Absolutely.
Whether it's by a job, by a partner,
by God,
right?
He already chose y'all. All y'all have to do is say yes.
You want to be picked. I want to be picked, but I'm not going out of my way to be picked.
Exactly.
Right?
Especially when it comes to the detriment of somebody else.
Crabs in a barrel. Yo, we got crabs for 3 episodes now.
No, really though.
Yeah, I feel like it's not that serious. Is it really that serious? Because best believe you don't talk to none of the guys none of the guys.
Nope.
And thank God you're reformed.
No women no longer pick me.
Because honestly, the people that you're trying so hard to be picked by,
They probably don't like
whole time, they probably think you're weird.
Yeah, they're like, yo, she be doing
They know,
most, bro.
They absolutely know. They
Some
absolutely
of them
know.
know you're a pick me and start poking for fun. See
It's
how far you
completely
go.
intentional.
Bro.
Especially when you're in a space like the club room where there's an audience. Like a lot of, in my even own experience, it was like they would use that space to capitalize on the pick-me-ism so we can all laugh about it when you go to class. Like, we know what goes on when we left for class. Like, it's very obvious. So they're in on it. Like, it's not very difficult to spot a pick-me, especially with social media, using it as like a trend. There have been a lot of videos where they showcase very common behaviors of men and women who feel like they need to go above and beyond to get this attention from others. And it comes from that place of feeling like you need to prove yourself to be there.
It's comparison too. Like you talk about social media, it's all like if you watch the same kinds of people being picked and the same kinds of people, like going back to the light skin dark skin issue, like if you see the same light skin girls being picked, it's like what you have to in your head. I mean, I can't speak for the experience, but I'm thinking like in somebody's head, you have to overcompensate for other girls being picked that look a certain way, and it's like that's horrible to think of because you yourself want to be picked, and like the way you even like handle that and step towards, I don't even know.
A step towards healing is
right,
therapy, like you said, and dealing with that and acknowledging that I don't need to be picked to be considered beautiful.
Right.
I think that's when you strive so hard to be picked because you want to validate yourself instead of not being validated without someone else's opinion of it all.
Or finding spaces where people can validate you.
That's
and not necessarily in like. I'm not talking about you need to hear somebody say, no, you're beautiful 12 times a day because once again, you need to go to therapy. What it is making sure that you're putting yourself in spaces where you can be reassured and reaffirmed as a person when you do have those moments where you slip and you fall. Like one thing that I always talk about, and like it's something Ashley and I talk about all the time, like I really want my kids to grow up in a very specific kind of school, because in my experience, although leaving that and going somewhere else was a culture shock, I was very sure in who I was from a young age because of the community that my family built for me prior to having to go fight the lions, tigers, and bears, right? And now...
And bears? Wow. I never heard that one. Lions and tigers are...
Nice.
But now it's like, even like as an adult, I'm grounded in those things. I'm rooted in those things, and I have those spaces to go back to, and I'm actively seeking out spaces. Well, it's a work in progress. Right now, we're going through a struggle mentally, but that's fine. You know, lives. So it's like I'm actively seeking out places where I feel like I can be myself, and I can 100% say what I need to say, and if I can't, how do I go about fixing that, or how do I go about changing the space so that I can continue to be okay with figuring out how to be okay. Because once you lose that part, it's like, yeah, I don't got nothing else for you. Like, it's a disaster.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But then I also want to go back to like the colorism issue of it's a light skin versus dark skin issue where the middle people try sometimes we get lost, because for me, I don't classify it as light skin or dark skin because I feel like there are definitely people lighter than me, and there's definitely people darker than me, and it also plays a part in which the culture I'm a part of or grew up in. So like being Haitian and having a lighter skinned grandmother and having a darker skinned grandfather, and having those conversations in the midst of other people that are darker than me of beauty, like you were saying, that special cousin or whatever. It bothers me because that special cousin, their feeling is not, I don't know what I'm saying right now. I'm lost.
You're dealing with two extremes, and you're in the middle, and you don't necessarily fit into other, and you're not taking into consideration when those conversations happen, because they're always happening from a point of extremes.
Yes. Boom. And that is the brown skin issue, because, see, you helped me come back on track. Actually, I should have looked at my notes, bro. I was going far. I'm like, where am I going?
You happy that you lost?
Bro, I'm losing myself. But the brown skin issue, where it's like where do different skin colors fall into the categories? Because I think light skin and dark skin looks different depending on what.
In comparison to whom?
Yeah, in comparison to whom, and in which spaces that you're in. And it's oftentimes the term brown skin is an escape from being called light skin or being called dark skin. But sometimes that situation is true, and sometimes the situation is I just don't fit in those categories, or I feel like there's no space for me to talk in those categories, so I rather let the people who are the most oppressed in those categories speak up for themselves.
Yeah.
And I take a back seat. I don't know. I feel like you would say, like, take a back seat.
Yeah, I think this is where you guys really, but not the same. But
not the same way.
No, but like in that feeling, because it's very true. Like if it's you and I walking down the street, you're brown skin and I'm dark skin,
right?
But then also not you in particular, but I know other people who use the brown skin thing as like
an escape,
but also just like, I'm not light skin, I'm brown skin. Okay, I'm, because you got light, you got pale, you got caramel, you got Milky Way, you got the whole thing, and it's like, I'm brown skin. I have just enough for you to be like, yeah, but not enough. And then it's just like, bro, please go sit down. Like,
that's pick me.
Please.
Sorry.
Yes, it is the pick me, but like, I mean, I don't get that experience, but I can understand how that can be a stressor on you. So I sorry.
Yeah, but sometimes it's also like a invalidation. Like, I shouldn't be stressed. That's like a minimal problem I have.
At least you're brown skin and not dark skin.
No, that's not what I meant.
Like,
feeling that stress is not important.
As bad as someone else, so you shouldn't even be pressed about it.
Yeah, but it's still an experience that should be validated.
And I've never been bullied because of
the color of your skin,
or like outwardly dismissed because of how I looked. Like, not that I know of, or maybe I have turned a blind eye to it that I don't even realize it. For example, like a job interview where it's like, oh, your name is, where's Ashley? Right here. Like, I am the Ashley. Or like, do you know what your last name means? Yes, I know my fucking. Sorry. My freaking last name means, and yes, I'm not European. God damn it! But jeez.
Oh my god, I get you're Danae. I'm like, hi.
Who else? Okay, it's like, besides those situations, I don't get
people, bro.
The crux of it.
That's crazy. Oh, what I could say is it going in that direction of like seeing how like people are impacted, because I kind of agree with you in the sense that I don't really speak too much on light skin or dark skin problems because I don't feel like I'm either. I see in my family there's a lot of favoritism for the more fair skinned. Like, we one time had a reunion and my grandpa has 6 or 7 siblings, right? Each of those 6 have like 3 or 4 brothers or whatever have you, and the kids, we're all relatively the same age, so we compare each kind of like family tree, right? So my family tree section is the brown dark skin section, because most of us are pretty brown skin. We have some dark skin in there, but overall we're the brown dark skins. That's what we were identified as. There's the light skin section, which they are very much like very fair skin. Janelle, they're the fair skin section. All of them are very fair skin. And then we have the rich skins. They all just have money, so they didn't get a classification. And then we have the dark skin section, and you can see that even amongst us as cousins, like for fun, we did that. So it's like, why did we feel it was a good idea to compare ourselves by it? But like, I see it even in the kids at school. Like, they'll be like, oh, we're the pretty brown girls. And it's very clear because I work in a school that's predominantly Black and Hispanic, and you'll see that even amongst themselves, like the darker Hispanics will not chill with the Black kids. They will stay with the Hispanics, and then they will get laughed at for being darker. And it's very blatant, and it's so like deeply inbred into our society that they don't see anything wrong with it.
No, but
like, that's just life.
That's literally where it starts. Like my first like legitimate like colorism memory experience was like me with, I mean we're adults now, but like one of like some of my closest friends in elementary, middle school, and it's just like, yeah, no, I'm prettier than you, and who's the prettiest? And like if we went down the list of who we thought was the prettiest person was the light skinned person.
Mm-hmm. Light to dark.
I was always the darkest person. And it's like, no, you're pretty, and you have, like, for me, you know, my hair saved me. You have nice, long, pretty hair, and like my hair, I've never permed or anything. Like, so it was either flat iron, straight, like down half my back, or it's like your hair is so pretty. Like I love your hair. But sorry, yeah, bleep that out. That one you gotta bleep out. But she's the prettiest, and it's like, I am the prettiest. You're right. I do think I'm the prettiest. And it's kids, so you can't be mad at kids because like kids are the perfect reflection of who we are as a society and all the things that we need to fix, because that's how it starts. But yeah, that's what it is, and that's how it wasn't, not how it was blatantly in high school, but like I have a thing for Latin men. That's my thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I've dated a lot of those, and I've been in a lot of spaces with parents who didn't know I understood Spanish. So like, you know, you have those conversations, and they're like, "Mom, she knows what you're saying," and it's like, "Oh, yeah, we're doing that.
I have you know, a lot of us here understand Spanish, so if you ever bring us home.
Yeah, like we may not know how to respond all the time, but just know. I understand what you're saying.
Right. I'm gonna respond respectfully.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm
gonna respond.
You just gotta hit them with one liner. Don't say nothing more.
And that's it.
That's it. Just so we get that. We here with it.
Yeah.
But I also want to say that a lot of the times in these conversations, men get left out of the equation and how colorism impacts them. Where it's like the lighter you are, the more feminine you are, the more
pretty light skin, the light skin face.
Right. Yeah, and then emotional. Right. The light skins are the emotional ones, and then you have the nice dark, tall, dark man, a nice tall, dark, and handsome.
I'm sorry.
Doesn't this get old?
It be pissing me off on Love Island. Be like, yeah, I love a nice, tall, dark, and handsome man, and the man come out and he's a white man
with dark hair. Yeah,
but I'm talking about not even dark. Where is he dark? I like tall, dark, and handsome. Yeah, he's right my type.
No, but
be for real.
Within the Black community, not the brunettes.
Yeah, be so.
I'm talking about like within the Black community.
Oh, but
they are the more manly and masculine type of man versus the lighter skin man.
But also too, on the flip side, they're also not usually, or only now are they becoming the handsome man.
Definitely.
Who are?
The dark skin.
Dark skin man.
Like I can definitely like know from my own experience. I had my moments. I'm like, I went through a period of time where I dated light skinned dudes, and I'm like, subconsciously I was probably trying to make my kids lighter and didn't even realize it. Yeah. Because, or like I just wasn't attracted. Like I had to be intentional about finding the things I liked in a dark skinned black man versus a light skinned black man just being light skinned and cute. Yeah. Like light skin is cute, dark skin is like, I like this feature about you.
Yes, I like
the muscles, the abs,
it's
the
something
beard,
that makes that makes
hold on,
him,
can't be ashy.
You know?
If he's ashy.
So that's definitely a thing, and I know for me, I've tried to I have to go through my own process with colorism, but I've also tried to be very intentional about that when I date, because I know how it feels for me. So I've tried to like curtail that in my own ways. So yeah,
that's crazy. I don't think.
No, it's like
I think my track record.
You have a good track record?
I'm good now though.
I don't know if it's a good track record because none of it is good or bad. But it depends on the intention. Like if you felt like that was a expression of you dealing with your own impacts from colorism, then that could be a bad thing. But I don't think dating with that whichever side of the spectrum is a good or bad thing. But I think for most of my track record, it's been people like me or darker.
I've dated across all colors.
I had a friend who, in the past, she used to say that she could only date someone who was her complexion or lighter, just because she was one of those who was worried about her kids. And it was like, it was in her, it was in her.
Worried about something that's not already here?
parents.
Like,
No,
She's
that's
thinking,
the thing,
like,
though. If
going
it affected
forward,
you,
yeah.
you would not want that for your children.
Yeah, she did
Like,
not
that's
want,
where that
okay.
comes from in that space.
like, she didn't want her children to have to experience the same dark skin experience that she had, for lack of a better word. So in an effort to ensure that they wouldn't have to
I
suffer
know
that
you're like,
way,
shucks, your brain is like trying to
she
put
was
the
like,
pieces
he has to be lighter, so that way at least she has a chance of not having as great of a problem as she did as a kid growing
And you
up.
also have like the whole fetishization between like swirl babies and
Right.
whatnot.
There's that too.
And then it's also the other side of the spectrum where it's like the Harry and Meghan thing where it's like, is the child gonna come out too dark?
Yeah.
Child.
child
Megan
look white.
admitted herself she didn't know she was black until she started
like
dating Harry.
0.25.
like let's
or like the whole this is a way we can make this relevant low key, like the Tia and Tamara thing, how Tamara made a comment about her black kids, and it was like, we're not saying that your kids aren't black, but we're saying like
they have different experiences.
they're giving
Your
only a
son's
quarter of the
eyes
drops.
blue.
You know, like, it's like for them it was a perfect example because they're both mixed, but then one married a black man, so now your kid is, for math purposes, and I'm not diminishing you guys to fractions, but like 75% black versus one who is 25% black.
Right.
And the ones who are 25% black, you
Have
would
different
only
phenotypes.
say that they're black. You would only believe they're black once they tell you the story, and you would have to get a history lesson to get that. So,
Or if they fall into the racially ambiguous, that's like the new thing.
That's
like, I don't know where you're from. You
I
the
can't stand
exotic,
those.
you the exotic mama that's foreign or whatever.
Yeah.
that wasn't nice to say, and that's me working on myself.
I can't explain to y'all how much I've been called exotic. Like
Yeah.
it's disgusting though. I don't want to be called exotic. That's
But there's
weird.
some people that
It's a
It sounds
fetishizing
like a
thing.
fetish.
But there's some people that feed into that. You
enjoy
know how
being
many
exotic.
names people have? Like, these not their real names, but they be saying something foreign.
Yeah.
That comes from that whole
Foreign
thing.
mommy.
I guess I just
Or
never,
exotic
I never
blank.
aligned with that. Like, I just be doing my own thing. I don't really like.
I'm Sarah.
But that's the thing. When I hear that, like, I can't deny that I'm light skinned. That doesn't. I can't deny that. But it's like I hate that comes with like not a detriment, but like how do I say this?
The expectation.
It's just I don't want, like, I can't help it, but I don't want it to
Define you.
define me. It's not like even the guy that approached me at the airport that one time before he went to Houston, and the voice message was, "I saw your skin complexion and approached you." That's disgusting. Don't do that. That's weird.
But you have
that
enough
tells me more about yourself than it tells me anything else.
But
Like,
you have enough education and self-worth that
but
you can identify
it scares
that
me.
is a problem.
It scares me because, again, light-skinned people in my position do not, like, still operate and hate dark-skinned people, hate brown-skinned people, hate anybody that's darker than them. That's weird. That's weirdo behavior.
Because they don't have the education or the self-worth.
Educate yourself. What did they say in the beginning? Educate yourself. Google.
Or self-worth.
I said that.
Like, they base their worth on the comparison of other people.
But there's more there's more uneducated than educated out here, and it's terrifying because when does this change?
Because
what
they're
is the
getting
solution to all of
getting
this?
reaffirmed in their badness.
So how what is the solution?
Well, I think the solution for me, this goes. Where can I start? Because I had a whole independent study about the new age of blackface and how racially ambiguous is the new blackface and all of this, and the Kardashians and the Emma Wahlbergs, and then you go into that's the first girl that wanted to put some real dark foundation on her face and go online and pretend that she was black. Whole time she's Swedish.
Oh dear.
Whole time blue eyes Swedish.
Not the Nordic countries. Go ahead.
Bro, but it just goes far, and then you go into the whole people where, photographers are editing people to look a different way.
Oh my gosh, that
it's so ingrained where
why is my orange glow so orange? I'm dark skinned.
or they make the highlights of your body so it looks like you had a whole gallon of oil on you because that's what's gonna get the likes and that's what's gonna get the
You can't be
views.
dark skinned and just have skin.
That's why
and
black photographers are important though.
But it's then
Sometimes
I had this whole
trying to get
conversation.
into an industry
Shout out to
and
defense.
find yourself in an industry, and you start to do what the industry requires for you to get in. not realizing that the long-term effect that it's having.
And not even only the industry, but then your clients are telling you, I want you to edit me this way. Because I had that whole thing on my story where, and I've had some nice conversations on my story where it's like, well, what if the client asks me to edit them in this way? And I'm trying to get paid.
Yeah.
What do you do at that point? What would you like? What
it goes to the integrity versus your.
It goes back to what did you get into the business for, and like what you're deciding to do as a business owner.
And then you have, these major corporations that just hold a lot of power in media.
Or take black companies and then switch the branding to make it less than black. Like that's the whole thing going on now where everybody's afraid for me-el because of the whole. What was that thing? Shea Moisture.
And Cantu.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not even talking about. And it goes into texturism too, the way your hair looks.
I think everything, this is a terrible way to think about stuff, but not to say that our generation is hopeless, but I feel like the best way obviously to, like, the next generation is always the generation of change. What that change looks like, we don't know yet because they're not here yet, and it depends on how we do things. And I feel like the best way to
not to cut you off, but
they're here yet, and our generation, like a lot of our friends have kids, so they are here. But I'm saying in terms of like them, like I try to be very intentional about the impact, the things that I do and say around the people coming up behind me, in hopes of fixing what it's not their job to fix it, but at least to help alleviate, not alleviate either. Whatever I can't fix for me, I don't want them to even have to deal with the problem in the same way. So if we change the thinking from early, like I don't want to hear any more of the school conversations of second graders talking about who's prettier based off of that.
I also think it's a huge predominant thing in America, because growing up in Kenya, like we didn't have these conversations when I was little. It was all vibes. If anything, there's a more classist issue because it was a third world country, no longer is. My country's coming up. But it's like I didn't know about any of these things, didn't feel any of these things until I came to America. But like nowadays, colorism is just hitting Kenya because of social media in the West. And now like girls in Kenya are bleaching their skin. We literally went to a workshop with 17 to 18-year-old girls in like rural Kenya, and these girls were talking about how like boys in school talk about them a certain way and all of these things, and like a workshop of just like telling them, why do you love yourself? What is it that you love about yourself? What about, and like one of my friends was speaking to them, like, love your melanin, love your dark skin, and like just hearing how they all appreciated each other and like affirmed each other in that workshop was so beautiful. But I don't know how, like, it's a very American thing, like, to just separate, divide. Don't come together.
Capitalism, baby.
Boo! I'm going back home. Boo!
It's boo until we find a different solution. And I feel like there's a lot of solutions, but there's so many connotations to the other types of societies that it's just not attractive anymore. But social media is the end all be all of all this mess.
Tomatoes.
But then it's also like there's some great stuff on there too. That, for example, your workshop probably has a social media page, right, where they're outreaching. It was through
the church, so it was we went to like serve like the rural areas because they don't have like the resources to get to the church as much. So we drive into like the smaller villages and stuff, and like they have, it's like a whole it's like 85 girls, and they like have like psychology workshops, empowerment workshops, like personality tests, so the girls get to know themselves better. They're valued more than just how they look, because like men obviously be like, oh, you have a big butt, you have nice, like all of that,
right?
So like they're learning to love themselves a lot more. But it's like the TikToks and stuff that they're seeing on social media and stuff, they still have phones. Yeah, they still find a way to have phones. But
I feel like it's a matter of filtering the good from the bad, because I feel like there are some workshops or some organizations where they try to push the narrative of loving yourself, but that gets so overshadowed by the big media
narrative. It was nothing like that. It was just like pure like just delving, just letting them express themselves too, because at home they don't get to
have
do that,
space.
you know. So it was just beautiful, but I just don't like. As much as it's just hitting Kenya now, it wasn't there when I was growing up. It hasn't been there. It's just getting there, and it's because of the West. Like, that's the issue that I'm trying to get to.
American problem, but I
no,
feel like,
literally.
And it's been like that for other places that aren't in the United States of America. For example, there's a lot of Caribbean countries that are deep in the bleaching of the skin, bro.
Deep
to the
and
point.
got no shame,
Bro.
I don't think Dominica's like that.
That's a blessing.
I was just thinking. Sorry, I forgot we were recording.
Okay, but there's a lot of Caribbean countries, a lot of African countries where they deep in that market is made for them. That market is made for people who have a lower self-worth and how they look like, I think, in my opinion. Some people say it's other things, but I think it's that. And with that, we have the quote.
Today's quote is as follows. Stop hating yourself for everything you wish you were, and stop loving yourself. And start loving yourself for everything that you are.
That's a great quote.
By Unknown.
Solid quote.
Thank you.
I wish I could have an accident. But nice quote.
You can.
As always, beautiful people, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the conversation. Join the Honey Hangout. Interact with us as much as you can. Hit that notification bell, right? It's the bell, right?
Yeah,
up there.
if it's on
literally.
YouTube, it's this way. If it's on Instagram, it's this way.
They know the directions. I know.
Like, comment, share, and share.
And if you're a pick-me, get help today.
Oh my God. Y'all be great. We love you as always.
Pickme.org. Pick me help.
For $1 a day, you
I
can
said
help
pee.
your nearest pick.
Oh my
My
God.
God. You can help me.
Goodbye, people.
Adios.